Hello, my name is Stanislav Zinchenko. I'm CEO of GMK Center, a Ukrainian-based consulting
Sorry,
company.
Mr. Stanislav, I will
Yeah.
be making an intro. Then
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
ask you to come in.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm starting. 1, 2, 3, start. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 3, session 3 of Steel Mint Engage 3.0, the virtual connect. Engage 3.0 is being held over 4 days from 1st till the 4th of November 2022. In these webinars, we have been exploring topics ranging from steel, iron ore, scrap to coal, ferroalloys, and non-ferrous. We are also focusing on relevant issues like carbon emissions and the scenario in Europe, especially Ukraine, against the backdrop of the ongoing war. We are discussing changing market dynamics in finished steel and raw materials and listening to experts in the relevant fields to facilitate decision making. I am Madhumita Mukherjee, editor Steel Mint, and the topic for this afternoon is how is the steel industry situation in Ukraine?
Hi, I'm Nishta Mukherjee, General Manager Iron Ore and Steel at Steel Mint, who will be co-hosting this webinar. We will be taking up the audience questions at the end of this session. So requesting all the online attendees to send in your queries in the chat box and we will take them in the good time. Do mention your name and company name when you send us your queries. Thank you. Also, I would like to thank the Ministry of Steel and Indian Steel Association for their logo support.
Thank you, Nishta. Now the topic for today afternoon. How is the steel industry situation in Ukraine? A very relevant topic, especially against the backdrop of the current geopolitical crisis. The war has disrupted global supply chains, while the Ukrainian steel industry, a key steel supplier from the CIS region, has seen its production reducing by 66% over January-September 2022, falling to 23rd rank in terms of steel production from its earlier 14th. It has been forced to lose its markets. It is a huge challenge transporting material to Europe, even via land, because of innumerable hurdles and bottlenecks, we are told. Russian steel, on the other hand, is finding its way into countries that impose sanctions on it. Two major mills, Azovstal and Illik, in Mariupol have been devastated by the war. The remaining mills are working much below their capacity. We will learn a lot more about the situation there and what kind of a toll the war is taking on the steel industry there. Today, our esteemed speaker is Mr. Stanislav and is joining all the way from Kyiv. He is the CEO of GMK Center. Mr. Stanislav is also chair of the Committee for Environment and Sustainable Development of the European Business Association, President CSCMP Ukraine Roundtable. For the last 4 years, he has been providing consulting services for Ukrainian iron and steel companies in sustainability issues, supply chains, capex policy, and market analysis. Mr. Stanislav has 15 years experience in consulting of manufacturing companies. He has expertise in operational management of supply chains. He is a team leader, consultant, and analyst in international projects in the field of entrepreneurship, operational efficiency, and logistic infrastructure. Welcome to the webinar, Mr. Stanislav.
Okay.
Over to you.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor. First experience to me with Indian colleagues. I'm glad to speak at this web conference. I'm going to talk about conditions in which our steel industry works in recent months. So I will share my screen. Do you see my presentation? Everything okay?
We can.
Okay. So none of the industrial enterprises can fully operate during war. Majority of Ukrainian steel plants stopped production when the war started in February. But then in May, they started resuming operation. But we understand that production activity is not safe for people, for production process. Many iron and steel plants located near the area of active hostilities. You can see it on the map. Yeah. So here is active hostilities, and here are located Ukrainian iron and steel industry. Yeah, and every day they work in endangered by missiles and drones attacks, energy and logistics disruption. You know that 2 steel plants and 1 iron ore plant are in occupied territories. You see it's Azovstal and Ilich iron and steel plants in Mariupol, and 1 more iron plant, it's Zaporizhia iron ore plant. So now it's not possible to assess their status and they are out of operation. Almost all iron ore plants were working till the autumn. Capacity utilization was around 50%. The situation changed because of worsening market conditions and increasing logistics costs. As a result, since the start of the war, iron ore production in Ukraine, you can see it on this slide, dropped by 90%. Only 3 iron ore plants, it's not the biggest from all our, are working now. Iron capacities are utilized by approximately 10%. Production of iron concentrate in Ukraine is almost stopped. Also, underground iron ore mines do not work because of electricity problem. The reasons are increasing production costs and energy supply disruptions of all this situation. So you see that September, our production level was very low. And in October, I think it will be also lower. Now about our iron ore export. Monthly iron ore export decreased by 77% since the start of the war. In some months, iron ore export exceed production volumes, and it's explained by sale of iron ore stocks. Why we had such big stocks? Because first of all, our iron ore production was for our steel production. And when we don't have 2 biggest steel plants or our steel plants don't work in full capacity, we have big stocks, you understand. So export destinations changed significantly. Before the war, Ukraine exported 40–45% of iron ore to China. But the war increased logistic costs for Ukrainian producers, and supply to China are not realistic now because of blocked Black Sea ports by Russian Navy forces. Ukraine export more than 90% of iron ore during the war to European Union. Now iron ore supply depend 100% on European Union market. And this market demonstrates recession signs. So iron ore export from Ukraine decreases. We prognosed this situation in June, as we have seen weakness of European steel market, and we see that this trend will be go till end of the year. So it's about iron ore export and production. Now about pig iron and steel production that decreased by 80% since the start of the war. All plants are working now except Mariupol, so 6 plants working. There are 2 large steel plants, as I told, in Mariupol, Azovstal and Ilich. They produce it together 40% of all steel in Ukraine. That's why we have such big fall in our steel production. Other steel plants reduced capacity utilization by 50% or even more. Ukrainian steel makers faced with serious logistics and supply problems, for example, with coke and coal, because before we bought it in Kazakhstan and Russia, now it's impossible. Ukrainian steel, and without solution, it's not possible to increase production without solution of this supply and logistic problem. We think Ukrainian steel makers now reached the maximum production level in current condition. But now with these attacks on energy infrastructure and also on steel plants, this production level can also decrease in October, November, and December. Now about our steel export. So reducing steel export from Ukraine disrupted global supply chains. Ukrainian export of semi-finished steel products decreased by almost 70%. The biggest shock was for European Union customers, Italian plants, for example. So 34% of slabs were imported in the European Union from Ukraine before war. There are many re-rolling plants in European Union, so they depend on imports of semi-finished products, especially from Ukraine. It's, for example, Metinvest or Marchigali or Arvedi or other steel plants. New plants had to search for new suppliers. It's Turkey, China, and particularly from China, yeah, first of all. Ukrainian steel exports began resuming after relaunch in Ukrainian steel plants in May, June. Then Ukrainian steel suppliers returned to MENA and South Europe. Also, the volumes are lower because of lower production. So, from my point of view, as I told before, it's our maximum today. Very interesting about pig iron. Pig iron export reduced dramatically in March and April because of hostilities. Resuming production allowed plans to increase pig iron exports gradually. Steelmakers faced with energy crisis in the beginning of this year, so pig iron import from Ukraine was very beneficial for them. Poland became the main European consumer of pig iron from Ukraine. USA resumed pig iron import from Ukraine since July. USA remains the largest importer, although the import volumes are decreased. So it's very interesting. You also can see that in September, our pig iron export volumes was good, but it's only because of logistic costs problems. So it was impossible for our plants to export iron ore to Europe, and because of logistic problems. And so pig iron, it's better to export pig iron, yeah, than iron ore in Europe, and that was our possibility. Our plants was always very agile, and before on the market, and now also. Now, about steel industry and challenges. So Ukrainian steel industry faced great challenges connected with logistics, energy, and market. Logistic issues arose from the beginning of the war. Russian fleet blocked Ukrainian seaports, so Western land destination to EU remained the only way to export products. Energy problem in Ukraine is different from the problem of European Union. Ukrainian steelmakers are influenced by electricity supplies disruptions. So it's because of this missile and drone attacks. Market issues relate to European Union, which is going to economic recession now. Now a little bit about our logistic problems. Main problem for exporting is the different track widths between European Union and Ukraine. It takes time to change wheel track. In summer, rail cars could stay at the border from 60 till 90 days. So our lead time was impossible. And now keys are lower. Rail cars stay at the EU border for 15 days, but it doesn't mean that the problem was solved. Problems are the same. First is the grain agreement works due to which grain is exported by sea. More other products can be exported by railway and trucks through EU border crossing. From other side, iron ore plants partly stopped production and iron ore exports decreased. That's why we have free capacity a little bit, yeah. And the European market needs less iron ore because of energy crisis, while cost of Ukrainian iron ore producers grew because of increased railway tariffs in Ukraine, inside of Ukraine. As a result, Ukrainian iron ore became less competitive in EU market. It's also one of the reasons why we decrease iron ore production and iron ore export. In fact, logistics issue became less significant because of lower exports. while capacities of EU border crossing remain the same. So the problem can repeat every month. 40% of energy infrastructure is damaged because of Russian attacks. It started last 3 weeks. It's coming every day. And it's one of the biggest challenge for population, for citizen, for production. It caused significant power outages. Electricity supplies are often interrupted. Industrial companies cannot work constantly in such conditions, especially EAF, steel plants, producers of iron concentrates, and underground mines. They cannot work without electricity. Now about a weakness of European steel market, our last consumer. Since the European market has become the only direction for Ukrainian steel products, Ukraine is completely dependent on its dynamics. But we see a 10% drop in prices in September, October. Also, according to our estimates, the margin of local producer in Europe is already negative. And it's also negative for Ukrainian steel makers experiencing a raising of logistic costs. So the European market is weak, and it's not just the energy crisis. Leading economic indicators tell us that European economy is entering into recession. The synchronous dynamics of indicators of the current economic situation and economic expectation that you can see on my slide is typical for a recession period. Manufacturing PMI fell below 50 in July, so crisis didn't start in August or September. When that occurs, it's for a long time, from 12 to 24 months. This indicates the beginning of a long recession in the economy. Indeed, if monetary tightening effectively brings inflation back to target levels in 2023, it will naturally have a negative impact on economic growth. In other words, an increase in business activity in Europe should be expected not earlier than the end of 2023. Probably European government, European bureaucracy will try to do something. Right now, we see movement from German government, from Italy government, from French government, from European Central Bank. They understand it, and probably they will do something that this recession will be not so long. The European steel industry is responding to the crisis by idling facilities. According to our estimates, about 10% of capacities were stopped in August, September. But this did not help to improve the situation with prices. In October, we do not yet see a continuation of the trend to stop facilities. It was only one case, but not 20 or 10 like September or August. However, the demand situation is likely to have worsened. Steel output in the European Union in September fell by almost 70% year over year, which is negative for supply, for example, for Ukrainian raw materials, as I told before. In other words, the next year will be a challenge both for European steel industry and for Ukrainian one. On the one hand, situation will depend, of course, on hostilities, on war in Ukraine. On the other hand, activity of European Union steelmakers will depend on global economic situation and governmental policy, carbon economic recession. Let's see how the situation will develop further. That's all that I want short tell you about situation in Ukrainian steel industry and Europe steel industry together, because from my point of view, during this year and I think in next year, it will be no separate Ukrainian steel industry. Ukrainian steel industry now is a part of European steel market and will be part of European steel market. That's all. I'm open for questions. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Stanislav. That was a very broad-based presentation covering almost everything that we were looking to ask you on, actually. You mentioned that 80% of steel and pig iron production drop has been experienced in Ukraine. And on the other hand, Ukraine had increased steel production in 2021 by 3.6% to 21.4 million tons. Now, how will 2022 end? With what kind of a crude steel production drop are you looking to end the calendar with?
For 9 months, Ukraine produced 5.5 million tons of crude steel. We expected before energy attacks on our energy infrastructure. Then in 2022, steel production will be amount from 7 till 8 million tons. But as we see now, because of this attacks on energy infrastructure, probably it will be from 60 till 6.5 million tons. So it means drop. When we will talk about 6.5 million tons, it means drop by 87% from previous year.
So, Stanislav, my next question to you is, what is the power situation like in Ukraine vis-a-vis the rest of Europe? So, I think you already mentioned a bit about in your presentation. If you could give an outlook to it on the power tariffs, that would be really great.
So, Ukraine for 1 month had no such problem in energy like Europe, because our population, official more than 6 million, unofficial more than 10 million people, is a refugee now, partly internal, and minimum 5 or 6 million it's out of Ukraine. That's why consumption of electricity down, and also from 40 till 60% of our industry stopped and business. That's why also we didn't have such problem before this energy missile attacks. So, and this power and Ukrainian energy system cannot fully supply electricity now to all consumers. We know about initiatives to increase also tariffs on power distribution in Ukraine, and it also will be a big problem for Ukrainian steel producers. So it's how to say, it's not I cannot tell you official information about which capacities destroyed or not, because it's in Ukraine closed information. Of course, we know it, but in Ukraine, many information are officially closed because of possible missile attacks. So, but as I told you, official information, till 40% of our energy facilities destroyed. But from my point of view, more than 40% of our energy distribution facilities destroyed. And it's a more big problem for us.
And to what extent is that impacting the steel mills? I mean,
today, what we see today, partly they work in night shifts, some of the steel plants, or they try to make more energy efficiency, but it's not so easy to do, using more gas or something like this. But they try to do it, but it's not very easy. So that's why I told you that before this, we expected about 7-8 million ton crude steel production. Now from 6 till 6.5 million ton production. And also it's important that Ukraine was supplier of iron ore concentrate and DRI, and we cannot produce it without electricity.
What has been the domestic steel demand scenario like since the outbreak of the war? I believe your domestic demand started recovering somewhat from May itself. So which downstream sectors have been actively procuring?
Ukraine does not most publish official statistics during the war about consumption, so it's difficult to make estimation and analytics. We are very careful with this. We see some recovering but last 3-4 months, but not in all sphere. For example, 70% was building, yeah, as a consumer, yeah, but now it's closed. So end of what I can tell, that end of hostilities in the north and northeast region positively affected on economy of these regions and started restoration programs. And that's why some sorts of steel our plants can produce for internal market. But I can also tell you that our traders and distributors, they active import steel from different country. It's but first of all, steel from country with cheap logistic for us. So it's East Europe, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, so some Poland, something like this.
All right. My next question to you is, what is the status of European Council's proposal to remove the duties on Ukrainian steel products? We believe it was awaiting approval from the European Parliament and European Council. So what kind of benefits will this measure offer to the Ukrainian iron ore and steel industry?
Hey, it's very interesting question because our steel industry was always under big trade restriction all over the world, not only in Europe. For example, after in third week of war, Mexico continue trade restrictions from for Ukrainian steel. It was for us surprise, yeah. For example, but EU has already canceled duties on Ukrainian products and quotas for 1 year. Decision came into force in June. So we are free to export without duties in Europe till June 2023. This decision support Ukrainian steel industry because Ukrainian steel plants is that I told before it's the main sales channel now. But because of this supply raw materials problems and capacity problems, it's do not influence very much on our steel export, not about pig iron or slabs, but for end products, you understand. So that's why it's good for us, but it's not losing the problem of destroyed plants.
You mentioned that, I mean, while we were chatting on the sidelines, you mentioned that one of the destroyed plants could be restarted by the Russians.
Probably.
Probably, yeah. But how challenging would that be, and by when could production actually start, and what are the challenges that would be in its path?
Yeah, you know, it's second time that Ukrainian steel industry has such a big problem. I think there is no steel industry in the world with such challenges as Ukraine. As you know, before 2014, Ukraine produced 42 or 43 million ton crude steel, yeah, because our main steel capacity was in Donetsk region, yeah, and so after that we produced 22, 23 steel. So now we see from 6 till 8 million tons. So it's a significant challenge, and I don't know what will do Russian, yeah, but we understand that Mariupol. Now, many people go away from Mariupol, many workers go away from Mariupol. As I know from official information, Metinvest holding, owner of these two plants, has a big problem, has a big program for these employees, and he helped them to work now in other cities, in Zaporizhia, Kamensk, in other steel plants in Ukraine and in Europe also. So it will be, first of all, it will be a problem with workers. Second, with raw material supply, yeah, because this Mariupol plants was supplied from Ukrainian iron ore. yeah, and coke. So, but okay, Russia have their own raw materials, and third, it's technology. Yeah, it's technology and engineering. So, as we know, Azovstal is fully destroyed. Nobody knows what is alive there. About Ilich steel works from its no evaluation. But many people said from 20 to 40% destroyed, but nobody know which part of this plant destroyed. So it can be such part that it will be impossible to restore full cycle of production. You can understand that it's not re-rolled plants, it's full cycle steel plants. Yeah, so with coke production, with everything. So that's why. And also the main challenge, last one, will be restoration of infrastructure. So without infrastructure in Mariupol city, people cannot live there. When people cannot live there, there will not work there. But I hope for peace agreement, and then that Mariupol will come back to Ukraine. And as I know officially, also from Metinvest press release, that they will restore these two plants. They are not sure with same capacity, with same production or not, but it was officially announced that after Mariupol will back to Ukraine, Metinvest will try to restore, resume production.
I see. Stanislav, what is the state of ferrous scrap exports from Ukraine? Like last year, we remember there were suggestions from the government on increasing the export duty significantly. So, how is the scenario out now there?
Oof, it's difficult to answer this question. So for one day before war, I didn't believe that war will be started. So that's why, for example, for 1 week, nobody believed that grain agreement will continue. Yeah, for example. So nobody know about future. We live in such uncertain situation. So I will tell you, we didn't calculate such scenario. So it's difficult to answer this question. Sorry.
So Stanislav, we have a fair idea of the kind of production drop that steel production drop that Ukraine has experienced. But overall, with Euro demand drop and taking into account the overall war impact, to what extent have steel revenues taken a hit?
Steel revenue?
Steel means revenues. To what extent have steel revenues taken a hit?
I think that I told in presentation that from my point of view, now steel industry in Europe, not only in Europe, in the world, is in a hard situation. So from my point of view, many European steel plants working with negative margin. So how long they can work with negative margin? Yeah. So I think we had before long periods, with such situation. So when we talk about Europe, we always talk about very hard and deep governmental regulation and support. Yeah, so that's why I'm sure that European government, European bureaucracy, European Central Bank will support European steel production, and they will not going down. Yeah, so they will alive. So for me, that means that also Ukrainian iron ore and steel production can be alive. Only one problem that we have in Ukrainian, you cannot work with 5% capacity, and then with 10, and then with 20, and then again with 5%. Yeah, so exist technological situation, minimum of capacity that you work. Okay, you will work for stocks 1 month, 2 months, and then you will need to close plant and sell from stocks. So that's why I think the biggest problem for all steel producers in Europe that closed now. I showed you the map. Also in Ukraine. So from my point of view, minimum 8-9 months of negative market situation waiting us in Europe. Yeah, so that's why and during this negative situation we will see that revenue margin, everything will go down.
I was wondering if the revenue drop could be quantified till date. If not, it's okay. I mean, if you don't want to share.
No, okay. Everybody talked about fourth quarter of next year when price market will be good, yeah, and will be go better. But it's, as I told before, I'm not so optimistic, probably because I live in Ukraine, in Kyiv. Yeah, so it's everything depend on global economy situation and European governmental measures. So they can make it shorter, this period, and we will see restoration of market, for example, in end of third quarter next year. Or they can say, okay, we make stagflation situation, we support people, not industry. Yeah, we support only consumers. Yeah, so that's why, and then situation can be not so good full year. So, but now I agree with many my colleagues, analytics, that it's fourth quarter next year situation will be better.
All right, Stanislav. One question that one of our attendees wants to hear from you is that how are the Ukrainian steel mills managing the coal supplies after Russia and Kazakhstan coal is out of the scene?
Now we have our big coal mine, and that's still working. It's last year, this coal mine, Pokrovskaya coal mine, I didn't remember figures exactly, produced from 3 till 4 million ton, I think 4 million ton coal. Yeah, and as I told you, two of our steel plants is full cycle plants, and they can produce in coke for steel production, but it's not enough for capacities that was, for example, in August, July. That's why we bought and still buy in Poland. So we buy in coking coal in Poland. So yes, it's not so easy. It's near with logistic. It's better to buy always from any other country from the world, but we do not have seaports, yeah, to organize such connection. So that's why now we losing this problem with partly with own production and partly with import from Poland.
Thank you, Mr. Stanislav. So my last question to you is, like, finally, what is the outlook for Q1 of 2023? In terms of, you said that consumption figures can't be shared. So in terms of production and exports overall, how does it look like? Can we hazard
in Ukraine?
In Ukraine, or some figures quantify?
Okay, so I'm very optimistic. I hope that till end of this year, I hope it's every month and every day war will be ended with some peace agreement. It's any peace better than war from my point of view. So, and I hope our steel producers will work hardly on restoration of Ukrainian infrastructure. So one of biggest producer, ArcelorMittal, produce longs. Zaporizhzhstal produce different type of flats and CRC, HRC. So I hope also one of the plant produce beams. Yeah, so it's important for bridge building and other infrastructure projects. So I hope that it will be restored, but when logistic problems, yeah, these bottlenecks with seaports will be the same, we will stay at this production level. It's good scenario from my point of view. When it's good scenario when we will stay the same level with blocked seaport, but without active hostilities and without distracted energy infrastructure. Yeah. So bad scenario that we will have probably 1 or 2 steel plants and 1 or 2 iron ore plants that will work 2-3 months for stocks, then close. 2-3 months for stocks, then close. Yeah, and but it's about energy infrastructure problem when Russia will continue to destroy. And my dream scenario is that Ukraine will have all steel industry back, and seaports will be open. It's very important. With open seaports, I think we can resume production to minimum 70-75% of the same of level of these 6 steel plants that we have. With iron ore, it's a little bit worse situation because everybody knew about falling price. Many expected price for iron ore $70. Yeah, and with $70, it's not so easy to export with seaports, but some of our steel producers, iron ore producers that produced concentrate with high part of ferrum or DRI, they can export because its price is better. Yeah, and logistic cost is good. So when seaports will be open, I wait that iron ore industry will have restoration till 75-80%. So it's very, how would say, dream scenario. I hope I answer on your question.
Thank you. You did, and I do hope that your dream comes true. A very warm thank you, Mr. Stanislav, for your time and for your wonderful presentation. It was very informative. And we have to close the webinar. We've come to the end. Thank you so much once again. Thank you to our viewers. Thank you, Nishtha, for joining in. And a big thank you again to the Ministry of Steel and the Steel Association, Indian Steel Association, for their logo support. And before we end, a reminder to our viewers to join us for the next webinar on Outlook on the Indian Copper Industry, Opportunities and Challenges. I'm Madhumita Mukherjee, Editor Steel Mint, signing off from this webinar. Goodbye.